Okay, so let's talk about getting the switches installed in the switch section. So there's, with the GX16 connector in an ASP part, it's going to take up one of the slot sections. So you either need a switch that doesn't extend very far down into that hole, or the solution that I like best is to use a switch cover and a dual tactile switch in the front. You can get a dual tactile switch from Saberforge. There's a couple of vendors on the Facebook groups that sell really nice dual tactile switches as well. I'm going to show you how to assemble mine, and you can get it off of Shapeways, and also on my Facebook page I've got the STLs available for free because the parts are really small, and Shapeways doesn't do a great job of making small part prints affordable. So the price for a small plastic part, I think, is a little bit unreasonable. So if you have the ability to print it on your own, I wanted to make that an option for you, so you can get the STL for free on my Facebook page and print it yourself if you'd like. You can also get the top decorative part in metal off of Shapeways, so it'll look real nice. So it comes in a top and a bottom. For most of the install, we're going to be dealing with this bottom part. So one thing that I've seen people question a lot is, just trying to understand, there's 4 pins here and what should I be soldering to. So what can help with that is having a multimeter. And most multimeters have a continuity test. So in this case, if I look near the ohms symbol, there's also a little sound symbol, which is the continuity test. So I can press, it's going to be different for every multimeter, but I can switch over to that test. And if there's a short, it's going to beep. So that can help me understand how these switches work. So I wouldn't want to solder, say, the ground and the aux switch to these 2 legs, because even when the switch isn't pressed, they're connected to each other. So we call that normally closed. I need something that's normally open and is only closed when I press the button. So this is going to be a little bit hard to do on camera, but so these are the 2 legs that I want. It's going to keep switching away from me. So if I touch it, they're not going to beep, and then when I press the button, it beeps. Yeah. I lost. There we go. Okay. So that's how we want to get that set up. So use my dual tactile switch bottom in particular. We're going to take the wire that we have for our shared ground. We're going to strip that. When you're stripping wires, I see a lot of people, like, what they do when they're stripping is, like, they're going to hold on to it and then they're going to, like, yank on it like this. And what you're doing when you do that is you're putting a tiny little gash in the wire there, and some of it even just came off, and it's just going to break later and it's going to cause a lot of headaches. So when you're stripping the wire, what you really want to do is you want to make sure that, one, the channel for stripping the wire is clear, there's not insulator stuck in there still, and you want to make sure that you just pull straight out and don't wiggle it around. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is tin that wire. So we're going to get our helping hands just to hold that still. And I've got a lot of excess wire here, so we really could shorten this up. We don't need all this wire. We're going to clean the tip. And get some solder. So heat the wire up first, then bring the solder to it. The solder's not going to flow to the wire unless it's hot. Okay, so now we've got that tinned. So the next thing that can be an issue is just soldering tiny things like this. So I'm going to show you what I like to do. So the first thing that we need to do is get this ground wire through the hole. And we can just slide that back for now. Just slide it out of the way. We'll get that back later. So I'm going to take some double-sided tape. I'm going to put that down on the table here. And I'm going to take my two switches and I'm going to put them as close together as I can and make sure they're right in line with each other. And then just press down. And that's going to hold them in place while I solder them so that I don't have to fiddle with the helping hands on something this small, and I've got so many of them here. So what I need to do is I need to get this shared ground wire across the two center pins here. The first thing that I'm going to do is tin those legs. Hands are a little shaky today, so there we go. Alright, and I've been talking a lot, so my tip is oxidized a bit. I'm going to clean that off again. Okay. So the next thing that I need to do is get that wire in place. I don't want it rolling away on me. So get the okay. And gotta get in here. That's no good. Alright, so now we can double check that. Can touch here and here. We don't have a connection with that one, so probably need to solder that better. See if the other side's connected. Yeah. Okay, so it is connected. I just wasn't making good contact with the probes. So you always double check. I'm gonna resolder that. I don't think it's a very good connection. try again. Okay. It's hard to do this and press the button. There we go. So definitely testing with a multimeter as you go is going to save you a lot of heartache. It would really suck to build this whole thing and then find out the switch doesn't work after you've got it all assembled. So you got to test it as you go along. Alright, so now we've got that set. We're going to very carefully peel up the tape here. There we go. It should pop right off. And then these two switches, going to be super careful not to stress that wire. Those two switches are going to sit in this channel. Okay. There we go. And here it's got a nice friction fit, but again, if yours is a little bit looser, a small amount of glue is fine. You won't really need glue later. Okay, so the decorative top is going to slide over that. And it should look like that when you're done. I'm going to take a small amount of glue. I like to use E6000. It takes a longer time to cure. I usually give it like 3 days. And you only need a very small amount of glue. But I like it better. I used to use Gorilla Glue, which is just kind of a brand of super glue, but it doesn't really hold up to the weather well. It gets really cold here, so if I'm outside and it's super cold, sometimes the glue doesn't hold. It's too brittle. Okay, let's put that on there. We'll just press it for a second to get it to set. It'll take about 3 days to cure, but it'll, after like 30 seconds or so, it'll be enough that we can handle it carefully. We just want to make sure that the buttons are still depressible and that kind of thing. If you find the buttons don't seem to be depressing easily, you may need to take a file and open up that hole a little bit where the brass buttons come through. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to connect our switch wires to the contacts that are exposed on the side here. Oh, on the opposite end. Okay. So I'm gonna take my helping hands and have them, let's see if I can get them to hold this and still have it viewable in the camera. There we go. Now I don't have to worry about bothering the glue. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing, just strip this, and we can actually make this a little shorter, I think. If we get this down close to where it's going to be. Yeah. Get this wire a little shorter. Do the same thing for this other one. Usually when installers, and me especially when I first started out, have issues with space, it's because we don't realize how much room the wire is taking up and how much extra wire we've given ourselves that we didn't need. Alright, so anyway, so I've been talking for a while, so definitely clean the tip because it's just been over there oxidizing. And we're going to pretend these leads here. And it's a tight fit here, but we're going to tin this lead here. It's on the opposite side of where we did the common ground. There we go. And we're going to take our tweezers, get that wire in place. Oops. A little hard to do. I'm going to need to flip that around carefully. Just being very gentle. These 32 gauge wires requires a delicate touch. Can't be too aggressive with them. Bend this down a bit. There we go. Normally I would have my wife in here helping me. She's usually my second pair of helping hands. She also has much steadier hands than I do. Okay. That's going to need more solder. There we go. That's just my multimeter saying I should have shut it off. Okay, now when we're putting this in, we want to just very carefully push it down into this space. Okay, now that we have the switch pressed in place, now's a good time to test it and make sure that it's working right. So I got my wife to help me hold this so we can test that. If we look at the pinout, we can see that our switches are on pins 7, 6, and 5, and the common ground's pin 6. So we're going to take the multimeter and set it up to the continuity test again. And get the pins just below the notch, and then can you press that first button? Okay, so we know that one's working, and then we'll press the second button. Okay, so we know they're all working there. And now would be a good time actually to test all the other pins. So we would want to test and make sure that, okay, for each of the pins on the NeoPixel connector, are they connected to the GX16 connector in the positions that we're expecting, and just double check our work and make sure that everything is connected and wired correctly. The last thing you want to do is go and connect this to a 15 amp battery or 15 amp drain battery and have it be wrong and destroy all your stuff. You've got a second switch slot here that we're not using, and you have a couple of different options. I make a couple of decorative switch covers. So here's one that I did that's printed in copper. It's supposed to look kind of like a fake port, and all I really did with this was I bought it off of Shapeways, or I printed it on Shapeways, and then spray painted it black, polished the surface so that it's got kind of a dual tone look, and then I used some solder to tin some of the pads just to give it some character. If that's a little bit too busy for you, I have other switch connectors that just are simple vents that you could put some mesh behind, and those are the ones that you'll see in a lot of the pictures that I've posted.